last night after the wake, I got home and I received a phone call. It was from St. Peter. And he said there are 4 problems with Mom taking up residence in heaven. He said, 1, he said, no one can get a word in edgewise. They're installing an extra phone line just for Mom. The second one, St. Peter said, Ma's been looking all over for the color, the vodka, and the The third one, they're not sure if they like the name of her knitting group, the Happy Hookers. And the fourth, someone touched her wig. And they haven't seen the lady since. Well, other mothers were singing How Much Is That Doggy in the Window, and Pat Boone or Perry Como as they were making dinner. Ma was singing the opera. She had a great voice. She sang Madam Butterfly like you wouldn't believe. She knew it by heart, and she had a voice to match. She had a great voice. I'm sure my brother and my sisters and I were the only kids in Somerville that knew Madam Butterfly, the opera. Mom was her own Maria Callas in Somerville. The story I used to like to tell, and she used to tell us all the time, when we were kids growing up, we didn't have a lot of dough. We lived in Somerville. And there'd be salesmen that would come to the house, and they would sell household items, and you would pay like 50 cents a week or $1 a week, and when you got finished, they'd give you the items. Well, this one time, Ma, she bought these break-proof dishes. I'll never forget. You know, she said, oh, this is great. They're going to last. We got the 4 kids in the house. We live up in, we got cement floors, and these are going to be great. So the salesman says, Ann, these are break-proof dishes. They're guaranteed will never break. Well, you know how that goes. Ma takes the salesman to court. So she's in court, the salesman's saying his thing, Ma's saying her thing. So the judge turns to Ma, and he says, do you have any proof that these dishes are not break-proof? She reaches under the table, she pulls out a bag of broken dishes, dumps them on the table. The whole courtroom gets up and laughter, they scream, they're yelling. Everything subsides. The judge looks to the salesman and says, pay the lady. Well, that was Ma, a real maniac, like she used to say. She was born on a snowy day in Bristol, Maine, raised by her grandparents during the tough 20s and 30s. They moved to Quincy, Massachusetts in the late 30s. She worked hard for most of her life, even 2 jobs on occasion, while raising 4 children. And she knew pain. A parent should never have to bury one of their children, let alone her 2 daughters, our sister, Luann and Pam. She was an amazing cook. She learned most of her cooking from 19th century meals that were taught to her by her grandmother. It's not a glamorous meal, but Mom made the best pot roast that you could ever have. Right, brother?
Yes.
We're going to miss that. But there was no airs about Mom. No airs. She was the salt of the earth, as they say. You can tell a lot about a person by the number of people who go to them for advice, wisdom, and guidance. Ma was that kind of person. Seeking that wisdom and advice, you might get a busy telephone once in a while. But you have to be patient for that kind of love, kindness, generosity, and compassion. And speaking of kindness, one of her favorite pastimes was to pack up her microphone, her amplifier, and sing at the veterans' homes with my sister Pamela. The veterans would always give her a big applause, a hug, and then say, Ann, when are you going to come back? We want you to come back. That was fantastic. Ma was sort of that Yankee version of Vera Lynn. She also knitted blankets. She knitted blankets for all her grandchildren, all the new grandkids that were born. She'd give them a blanket. And when she was in the nursing, the assisted living, she would knit blankets for everyone. I used to say, Ma, who are you knitting these blankets for? And she'd say, oh, I'm knitting for the old people. It was great. But she never saw herself as old because she loved so much. She loved living there so much. She loved her kids and her grandchildren through and through. And and she equally was proud of all of us. She loved my wife Claire like a daughter. And speaking of Claire, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being so good to Nana. Thank you. I love you. And as you can tell from my introduction of my eulogy, Ma had such a good sense of humor. I used to tell her this joke about Clyde and Earl. They were from Bristol, Maine, too. She'd always say, tell me that joke. So I told her once, this was one of her favorites. Clyde and Earl, also from Bristol, they were going down to the gas station to get an inspection sticker on the old truck. So Clyde says to Earl, I think my right blinker might be broken. Can you look out and see? So Earl looks out the window and he's looking, and Clyde says to him, is it working? And Earl goes, yeah, no, yeah, no. My mother taught me one lesson I'll never forget, and that is always to make sure your family knows you love them, and always make sure you show them you love them. After every visit or phone call, I would say, Ma, I love you. And Ma would answer, I know you do. You show me all the time. Well, we create memories for a reason, and I have a treasure trove of them, of her. I trade them all in if it meant I could still hear her voice on the other end of the phone telling me she knows I love her because I show her all the time. I love you, Ma.